All right, let's dive into the world of ethical sluts today.
Sounds intriguing.
We're taking on The Ethical Slut, a book by Dossie Easton and Janet W. Hardy.
Ah, classic. Challenging conventional views on love, sex, and relationships, right?
You got it. Get ready to rethink monogamy and explore a whole new approach.
I'm all ears. What struck me is how they reclaimed the word slut.
Yeah, turning it from a negative to, a badge of honor.
Exactly. It's about owning your sexuality, making ethical choices.
But it goes beyond just the word, right? It challenges how we relate to each other.
Totally. Like imagine a couple and one starts feeling jealous, which is like so normal.
Right, like society tells us it's unavoidable in relationships.
But Easton and Hardy say, hey, it's not a relationship death sentence.
Whoa, really? That's a different take.
They see it as a chance to grow, to understand your own insecurities.
So not about possessiveness and control, which is what we usually hear.
Nope. Jealousy is a learning experience. Mind-blowing, right?
It is. But how does that work practically?
Well, it starts with communication, being open about those tough feelings.
So, instead of shutting down, you actually talk about it more.
Yeah. The book gives tools for that, like really unpack the jealousy.
So what's triggering it? Fear of abandonment, insecurity, that kind of thing.
You got it. Once you get the root, you can deal with it better.
Makes sense. But what about the partner who's feeling jealous? Do they just, sit there?
Oh no, definitely not. Mutual respect and boundaries are huge here.
So both people need to feel safe and secure, right?
Absolutely. Honesty about needs and limits is key.
So it's not just a free-for-all. There are still rules.
For sure. It's not about avoiding commitment, but creating a framework for honesty.
Like choosing to be faithful to your agreements, whatever they are.
Exactly. You know, a big misconception is that it's just about sleeping around.
It does seem way more nuanced than that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And the book tackles those myths head on. Like one is that only long-term monogamous relationships are real.
Yeah, those are the only successful ones.
But they point out that success comes from things like respect, communication, shared values, regardless of the relationship structure.
So it's not the structure, but how you build within it.
Right. And then there's the idea that romantic love is the only true love.
Yeah, that intense, all-consuming feeling.
They argue that that intensity, often driven by fight or flight, isn't necessarily healthy or sustainable.
Wow, I never thought of it that way.
It's like we're told if it's not dramatic, it's not real.
And that can be harmful. Right.
Totally. The book encourages us to expand our definition of love.
To include friends, family, multiple partners even.
Yeah, it's about valuing different kinds of love, not putting everything on one person.
It's like that starvation economy's concept they talk about, right?
Exactly. It's a powerful metaphor for how scarcity thinking hurts relationships.
So in a starvation economy, everyone's fighting over limited resources.
And that translates to relationships how?
So someone who always felt emotionally neglected might bring that into their relationships.
Yeah, always worried about their needs being met, fearing scarcity.
Instead of seeing their partner as support, it becomes a competition.
Right. Hoarding affection, possessiveness, fear of being replaced.
Leading to jealousy, control, all that unhealthy stuff.
Exactly. But the alternative,
Yeah.
an abundance mindset.
Where love and connection are limitless.
Yeah. More for you doesn't mean less for me.
That's a big shift from competing to cooperating.
And it can be so freeing. You approach relationships with generosity and trust.
Wow. Okay, this is challenging how we think about relationships at their core. But is it realistic to actually live like this? Especially with society's focus on monogamy.
It takes effort, for sure. But the book offers tools for navigating those complexities.
Like what kinds of tools?
Self-reflection is crucial. Being honest with yourself about desires, limitations.
So knowing yourself before building ethical relationships with others.
Exactly. And honesty extends to everything, including safer sex practices.
Right. Honesty and responsibility go together.
They do. So we've touched on challenging norms, facing insecurities, embracing abundance.
A lot to think about. But there's still so much to explore in the world of ethical sluts.
There is. We've only just scratched the surface.
Okay, then let's keep going. Join us in part 2 as we get into specific skills and strategies for building and maintaining these ethical, non-monogamous relationships.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Back again for more on The Ethical Slut.
Ready for round 2.
Last time we were getting into the philosophy, challenging those monogamy assumptions.
It's a big shift in how we think about relationships.
Totally. But thinking about it is just the start, right?
Yeah, you need actual skills to put it into practice, like communication.
Communication. Seems pretty basic. Every relationship needs that.
It is, but in ethical non-monogamy, It's about creating transparency.
Transparency, huh? So instead of feeling threatened by your partner's other relationships.
You actually feel connected to them.
Sounds kind of utopian. How do you even get to that point?
It starts with redefining faithfulness.
Okay, so not just sexual exclusivity.
Right. It's about honoring your commitments to your partners, whatever those are.
So different agreements for different relationships.
Exactly. Some might be totally open, others more private. The key is everyone's on the same page, comfortable with the level of disclosure.
Gotcha. But I can see those agreements leading to some tough conversations.
For sure. Like, what if one person wants more freedom than the other?
Yeah, how do you navigate that?
That's where the communication skills come in. Expressing your needs without judgment, listening to your partner, compromise.
Finding that balance between individual and relationship needs.
Exactly. And it's ongoing. Those needs and boundaries can change, so keep talking.
Okay, communication is huge EE here,
Yeah.
but let's be real, that's hard even in monogamous relationships.
True. But especially in ethical non-monogamy, gotta talk about the tough stuff, like safer sex.
Ugh, yeah, that can be uncomfortable.
It can be, but honesty is a must.
Ugh.
Talking about your history, risk factors, comfort levels.
Any tips for those who find it super awkward to bring up?
Think of it as a team effort, not an interrogation, but working together for enjoyable, safe sex.
Okay, that framing helps, takes the pressure off. But what about those inevitable feelings of jealousy?
Remember, jealousy is normal. It's how you react that matters.
So not letting it control you, but seeing it as a sign of something deeper.
Yes. What's it telling you about your needs? Maybe you feel neglected, need reassurance.
So jealousy becomes a teacher.
Exactly. Unpack those feelings, learn from them, and again, talk to your partner. Share those vulnerabilities, listen to their perspective too.
Man, communication really is everything here. But let's move past talking and get into the dating world. How does, like, flirting work as an ethical slut?
Ah, cruising and flirting. The fun stuff. But yeah, it can be tricky too.
Okay, gotta ask, what's cruising in this context? Just picking someone up at a bar?
It can be, but it's about actively seeking new connections anywhere, parties, online, whatever, but with honesty and respect.
So no more pretending to be single when you're not.
Nope, that's unethical. You got to be upfront about your status and intentions.
Right, makes sense. But what about those subtle flirting cues? How do you do that ethically?
It's about communication, even nonverbal. Pay attention to their signals. Are they reciprocating? If unsure, just ask.
Wow, just straight up ask. No more guessing games.
Exactly. It might feel weird at first, but it's the kindest, most respectful way.
Yeah.
Prevents misunderstandings.
Love that. Clears the air. What about cruising as a couple? Is that a thing?
It is, but needs even more communication. Be clear about boundaries, desires, who you're open to, how to handle jealousy. It's a whole other level.
Sounds like it could go wrong fast if you're not careful.
It can if those conversations aren't happening openly and often. But for couples committed to communication and respect, it can be a fun way to explore their dynamics, expand their social circle.
Huh, interesting. Adds another layer of intimacy and trust.
It does. But solo, or as a couple, always remember those core principles: honesty, consent, respect.
So we've focused on the personal side, but what about the bigger picture? How does this challenge societal norms?
Great question. It really challenges the dominant paradigm of relationships.
So not just changing individual relationships, but society's view of them.
Exactly. It's saying there are many ways to love and connect, not just one right way.
Pretty radical, especially with society's focus on the traditional family model.
It is, but also liberating. Imagine a world celebrating relationship diversity. People free to create what works for them without judgment.
That would be amazing. But how do we even start shifting those deeply ingrained norms? Feels impossible.
It's not easy, but it starts with each person living ethically and authentically. Every individual choice plants a seed of change.
So we each take responsibility for living by our values, even if they're unconventional.
Exactly. Being brave enough to challenge the status quo, create a more inclusive world.
This has been eye-opening. It's not just about sex, but a whole philosophy of love and connection.
It is. It might not be for everyone, but it challenges us to think differently about relationships.
And that's what matters, right? Expanding our understanding of love, creating authentic connections.
Beautifully put. And as we wrap up this part, a thought for our listeners: how can these ethical non-monogamy principles, honesty, consent, respect, enhance all your relationships, regardless of their structure?
Something to think about. And we'll be back for part 3 to explore some of the tougher challenges of living this lifestyle. All right, final part of our Ethical Slut deep dive. We've talked Philosophy, skills, even societal stuff.
Yeah, we've covered a lot.
But gotta be real, it's not always easy living this way, right?
Definitely not. The real world has its challenges, especially with monogamy being the norm.
Okay, let's get into those challenges.
Yeah.
What are some big ones for ethical sluts?
Social stigma is huge. Lots of people still judge non-monogamy, see it as wrong, irresponsible, or just plain weird.
Yeah, that must feel isolating, especially without support.
It is. It takes patience, educating people about your choices.
But what if they're not open to it? Like they just refuse to accept it?
That's tough. No easy answer. Sometimes you got to set boundaries to protect yourself, maybe limit contact or what you share.
So putting your well-being first, even if it means not pleasing everyone.
Exactly. It's not about cutting people off, but healthy boundaries. And remember, you're not alone. There are whole communities of ethical sluts and polyamorous folks who get it.
That's good. Having that support is crucial. But what about legal and financial stuff? Does it get complicated when you're not following the traditional marriage model?
Oh yeah, big time. We need more inclusive systems. Like marriage laws are all about monogamy.
So things like inheritance, taxes, even hospital visits get messy.
For sure. And especially for polyamorous people wanting legal recognition for multiple relationships.
Sounds like a legal minefield. Are there groups working to change that?
Definitely. Like the Polyamory Legal Advocacy Coalition, they're pushing for more rights and protections.
Glad to hear that. Hopefully things will improve as more people embrace these lifestyles. Now, what about kids? Raising children in this context seems tricky.
It can be, yeah. Ethical slut parents face judgment, sometimes even from family.
It must feel like constantly fighting against the idea that kids need a traditional two-parent home.
It is. But the book argues that kids can thrive in any loving environment, as long as there's honesty, respect, communication.
So it's the quality of the relationships, not the structure.
Exactly. And they give examples of how to make it work, like creating a support network, friends and lovers, becoming like extended family.
Like a chosen village raising a child.
Yeah. And it can be so good for the kids, experiencing that wider range of love and different perspectives.
But what about those conversations with kids? How do you explain ethical non-monogamy to a child?
Age-appropriate honesty is key. Don't overwhelm them, but don't hide the truth either.
So maybe start by saying some families have one mom and dad, others have two moms, two dads, or a bunch of loving adults.
Exactly. Keep it simple, focus on the love, and most importantly, create that safe space for questions and feelings.
So important, that open, judgment-free communication. But even with that, kids will face outside pressure, societal judgment. How do you help them deal with that?
It's about resilience, empowering them, teach them to question assumptions, stand up for what they believe in.
To be proud of their unique family.
Exactly. Celebrate those differences, the diversity of relationships. So yeah, we've talked about tough stuff, stigma, legal issues, parenting. It can be daunting.
It can. But you still seem hopeful about the future of ethical non-monogamy.
Oh, I am. Because despite the challenges, more and more people are questioning those old relationship norms, looking for something more authentic.
Like we're on the verge of a real shift towards more acceptance and inclusivity in relationships.
Exactly. Lots of work to do, but it's exciting to see this movement grow, challenge those limiting beliefs about love and connection.
This deep dive has been quite a ride. We've explored so much, challenged our own thinking.
It has been. And hopefully our listeners learned a lot too. The Ethical Slut is a thought-provoking book pushing us to see relationships in new ways.
And that's what it's all about, right? Expanding our understanding of love, creating fulfilling relationships.
Beautifully said. And as we wrap up this whole deep dive, a final thought for everyone. How can those ethical non-monogamy principles, honesty, consent, respect, make all your relationships better no matter what they look like?
That's a question to sit with. Explore it with an open mind and heart. Thanks for joining us on this journey. Keep learning, keep growing, and until next time, keep diving deep.